All right, vocals. We're going to break down. Let's do the lead vocal first. This was a track that I wanted to try. The technique. I can't remember if I mentioned it to you guys, but I'm all over the place. I love learning. I'm over it. Nail the Mix, and I've checked out some of Graham and Joe's stuff. I'm all over the place with tutorials. And one of the things that Billy Decker talked about was using an 1176 and just slamming it, and then EQing, reductive EQ, boosting with EQ, whatever, do your thing with EQ, then RVox from Waves, and then de-essing. And I gave it a shot on just one track, and I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. So what I did is I kind of blended that thought process, mostly just took using RVox, and I did what I did here. So let's take a look at the lead vocal. I EQ'd first of all, because it was just, I felt like it was too big, too thick, so I took out some bottom, took out a couple wonky frequencies, something at 3 that was bothering me, 3K, added a tiny bit at the top end, and then I moved forward to the 1176, the Rev A that I really like, and I hit that hard. And it was pretty cool getting that, but then it brought forward some of the sibilants and the S's and all that good stuff. So I compressed de-essed in 2 stages. The first is the 2K to 3 or 4K range, and then the second is the S top sibilant stuff, probably 5, 6K all the way up till 8 or 9K. And that was pretty cool. Then I sent the lead vocal to the parallel compression. Another instance of an 1176. This one just flatline, just crushing it. And then a limiter on the back end of that to bring back even more, just really flatlining the vocal here. And then just lifted up the parallel compression to help fatten it up. Both of those go to my lead vocal level track. Let's hear the lead vocal maybe a little bit at the beginning here with no parallel compression. Let's turn off all the processing. Let's hear the vocal we were given. And it already wasn't very dynamic, so maybe overkill with the compression, but I kind of dug it. So let's talk about the processing here. The storm arrives in darkness, I wait as clouds come rolling in. More character. Character there, the 1176, and then shaping the EQ to kind of fit the track as opposed to smashing it there. Where the compression comes in big is this parallel chain here. The storm arrives in darkness, I wait as clouds come rolling in. Huge, right? I'm braving the seas, is this my place? That got a little bit weird for me, so I went in for some reductive EQ and pulled out the lows, the low mids, kind of shaped that a bit. You can hear that. The storm arrives in darkness, I wait as clouds come rolling in. And then I wanted even more, so I went to RVox. There were some parts where I was losing him. I thought, instead of automation, let me just go even more with compression. I tried the RVox thing, and I kind of dig it. I liked it. The storm arrives in darkness, I wait as clouds come rolling. Let me, excuse me. Let me clarify. I liked it in the track. I hate it in solo. But then definitely brought forward something I didn't like. Wanted to control that a bit with the Pro MB. The storm arrives in darkness, I wait as clouds come rolling in. Excuse me. Again, please excuse me. The decapitator was to just dirty the vocal up. I needed some grit, man. I wanted this to have some character. I didn't want it to be super clean. And so this to me just felt great. In context, of course, but I'm showing you in solo so that you can really hear it. The storm arrives in darkness, I wait as clouds come rolling in. It's rock and roll, man. I don't want a pop vocal here. I want a saturated vocal. And that's not over the top. There's nothing crazy with this. Probably maybe a little bit more at the... I'm singing my way out of this one. little bit there, just kind of like a broken tube, just a hint of it. Maybe not even a broken tube, just a little bit there. And that was that. So it's kind of hard for me to explain. Just really taking the lows out and just smashing it in stages, hitting it with compression, and ultimately in the context of the whole track.
The storm arrives in darkness awaits as clouds come rolling in. I'm braving the seas. Is this my place? Outside the door lies my fate.
Okay, we'll talk about the delays and whatnot, but he had these doubles that were throughout the whole track, and I really liked the original mix, the way that those vocals were mixed, and it felt like they were up. So I let them live in the track.
Storm arrives in darkness awaits as clouds come rolling in.
And all I did for that is that radio voc spread here, that preset we talked about with the guitar, and then cleaned up the top end to make sure it wasn't too harsh. That preset, for whatever reason, it's got an upper mid frequency thing to it. And then there were parts that just got a little bit out of control, so I multi-band against the double there. You know what? I think that's for the special stuff. Where's the doubles? Okay, I didn't think I did that much to the doubles. Just the SSL. Everything I just said is for the oohoos that I added a layer to. Forgive me. The doubles, it's just the compression from the SSL.
The storm arrives in darkness awaits as clouds come rolling in.
And that was it. Straightforward. Just compressed it, boosted for saturation from the SSL, and I left those alone. Forgive me. So the doubles, will put these away for a minute. Let's take a look at the oohoos. Get out here. There's a couple of phrases and there's things going on in the vocal. I didn't want it to just stay the same vocal sound the whole song. I wanted there to be parts where we accented certain phrases that we gave special effects to, delay throws, reverb throws. I wanted it to kind of be this, to perform the vocal through the mix a little bit and enhance it. We had lots of layers, cool parts that were recorded, but just things that I felt like could enhance the vocal a little bit better. So with the lead vocal, I created this distorted lead track. Similar to the guitars, I went and copied certain phrases and pulled them down and then just mangled them. So here you can see again the Studer, the effects cassette deck preset. This could, if you don't have Studer, this could be any saturation plugin that you just mangle to taste. And then what I do is I shape it with EQ. So pulled back some of the harshness, a little bit weird in the mids. I de-essed because I wanted to retain I wanted the lead vocal to be where the S's came from, not this. So I hit this a little bit harder, again with 2 stages of de-essing. Let's hear just the distorted lead.
I'm singing my way out of this one.
So those lines right there, all throughout the song, have this extra little bit of saturation. So here's without it. And with it. It may not feel like much right there, but in the context, I really think it does help just create something unique for that part. It's subtle, but I'll mute it and bring it in and mute it. Absolutely brings it forward more as well in the mid-range. A couple more times here. If you can see where I'm muting that and whatnot, I think you'll be able to hear the difference. Bam, bam. Let's look at, I think the only thing I did to that outside of that processing was the Cooper Dimension, the vocal dimension preset. Again, just kind of expanding that a little bit out of just being mono to kind of give it a feel in the center there. Let's look at the oohoos, what I was describing the processing for earlier. Same thing. I felt like the vocal performance was lacking, not lacking his performance, but the production. There was just something missing with the oohoo that we're about to, that sounds weird. Love that. Love the falsetto, but it just by itself felt weak. So I wanted to enhance that a bit, and so I duplicated the track, came over here, I threw the vocal spread, probably, the Echo Boy preset, tamed the top end, and then there were some artifacts, we'll call it, in the performance a little bit, kind of noise, and so I really compressed hard against 2 frequency ranges there to control that. Here's by itself. That right there, right? So without this stuff, woo, took our head off, right? So we had the EQ and then multiband to even cement. Big difference. It's still there, still hear it, but that's the performance. We tamed it, we controlled it, we did what we could, and I think it's worth it to have it in as an extra layer here. I sent it to Verb, Gyno Hall, big modulated reverb, and I gave it a stereo spread even more than just what Echo Boy did. So without any processing, this actually came from the doubles up here, so it's a copy of. So same thing, but then the processing gives it, and then with it. So we accent that. Let's hear it in the track with the lead vocal. Back a little further.
I won't let this win.
Cool. And then with it.
I won't let this win.
Just added more weight to it. I love that. I think it helped a ton. Let's check it out here. Here's in. Just gives it that kind of, I don't know, just an aggressive, over-the-top, mid-range thing that just helps it cut through a little bit better. Here's without it. It's just like left out to hang, just all by himself there. So that I feel like added a nice little bit to it. I also blended some at the bridge here. It's kind of an airy thing going on. It's lower. Excuse me, I'm talking over the music here. I dropped the gain staging, so we have less of it here, but it's just a nice little texture, a little layer to give that some air. Love it. Cool. And then again, you can see the oohoos whenever they come in. And then at the end here, for that, I just added an extra little layer. And that was that little part. So little thing to accent certain phrases. So we had the oohoos, we had the distorted lead part that we just talked about, and we had some automation down here. So let's look at that. I didn't show the effects. We'll do here the mono throw first. The mono throw is just up. And then what I did is I sent the full signal of this lead vocal into this mono throw track here, which has got just stacks some effects here. So we got the delay. I just set the timing that I wanted. So what is that, a dotted 8th note? Then I've got the Pro MB to tame the top end, and then the Pro C2 compressing the snot out of it, get this delay nice and flat so we can hear it. And then I've again gone to the character of the Studer, the effects cassette deck preset. Lots of distortion on this mono throw here. And then I've shaped it with EQ, pulled out the mud, pulled out the harsh top end, featured the mid-range there at the 1.5K. Moving a little bit quick, forgive me guys, but then the de-esser to make sure no sibilance comes through on this, or if it does, it's just subtle. And then I went even further and threw movement on from output. Effects upon effects upon effects, right? I wanted this to sound a certain way, and then this just a little bit. I haven't overcooked it with a full 100%. I've got 25, 30% or so. And so let's take a listen to just a clean delay throw, what it would sound like here. We'll solo the lead vocal.
There men who I won't let this win.
And that's what I was saying about. So I sent the full signal into this chain of effects, but then I automated the volume of it. You could automate the volume like I did here. Most of the time I automate the send into it, but I wanted a consistent level so that I could just kind of ride it instead of, anyway. So just a different way to cook in the kitchen. I don't know why I said that, but anyway, so rocking that, we're boosting the volume of this effect when we want it and putting it back down when we don't. One of the drawbacks to that is if you want feedback to spill out before the next word comes in, you can't do that this way. So it's a little bit janky, but if you want to control which words, you can always mute the send, open it up for certain phrases. I ended up liking how it sounded all throughout the track. I just wanted to bring it up and feature it at certain parts more, not send more signal into these effects because it would affect the compression, the saturation, the tone of it, if that makes sense. Maybe a better way to say this was I wanted to shape the sound of the throw so that I could lift up the volume at certain places and not have it change character. So I did that through the volume fader there. That was a horrible explanation. But anyways, vocal effects, these sound pretty good. We're going to show you just the raw delay. And that's just too much, too big. Put all that stuff back in.
No, I won't let this win. Oh, I'm singing my way out of this one. Oh, I'm singing my way out of this one.
So there you can really hear output, movement kicking in. That's the bit at the end here. There you go, the panning and the tremolo kind of thing going on. So anyways, I just kind of massaged that throughout the track, brought it up, brought it down where I wanted it, and that was mono throw number 1. I did give the vocal a little verb. I de-essed prior to it hitting the effect here. So we've got a 25 millisecond delay before. It was serving as a pre-delay because the reverb I chose, for whatever reason, the CLA Hall, it's what I used on the background vocal, so I wanted to use the same one on the lead and give it a shot. But it doesn't give me the option to use a pre-delay, so I stuck a delay on 100% wet at 25 milliseconds before the reverb. So we've got the Hall, just cranked it up, turned the direct signal off, so this is just as a send. And then Pro Q2, just shaping the junk out of it. Didn't want much top end, and I didn't want this something weird at 1.2 in that verb. So let's turn the verb off, go to the verse.
The storm arrives in darkness, I wait as clouds come rolling in.
And I tell you what, I think it sounds incredible. It's definitely a big verb. It's a wider verb than I'm used to using for vocals, but felt like it fit the track. And just make sure, a good trick is to de-ess before your reverb to make sure none of the sibilants, unless you want that, spills out into the reverb. Let's actually listen and see how much.
The storm arrives in darkness, I wait as clouds come rolling.
You can hear the verb kind of it hitting, and we've reduced a lot of top end in that verb, but you can still hear the S's kind of smacking against the verb.
The storm arrives in darkness, I wait.
And now you can't. Super subtle, super warm. I really dig de-essing before the reverb. Okay. So that's our lead vocal, the throw. We blended in chorus, modulation. We've got the Cooper vocal dimension preset. These are just go-tos for me. I did not use any of my vocal delay, the reverb, and then Gyno Hall. We did not use any of that either. So pretty compressed, pretty smashed, but in context of the track, you cannot hear all that compression. It's pretty character-driven. The background vocals, let's go ahead and knock these out. I was going to do it in another video, but pretty straightforward. I've bussed the like sounding parts to their own bus. So the first section here, I just called it gangs for gang vocals. I've de-essed them widely here from 2K all the way up, individually and as a whole on the actual track. There were some S's coming through on those, and it actually might have been more of these, the next section down here, but I just, for the sake of it, and just to make sure no S's were coming from the background vocals. I wanted only the lead. The lead had plenty of sibilance. I wanted that to rock and be the dominant S sound. A very controlled sound. So here, the de-esser there, then we've got SSL. Excuse me, losing my voice a little bit. Compression. Lots of compression, driving the saturation from the plugin. I've got shaping the EQ, making it more better. We've got less low mids, less 1K, a little bit of 1K, just all over the place. Here's without it. Little bit, yeah, aggressive. So I pulled down a wideband at 1.5 and then just massaged a little bit of what I wanted to help it cut through a bit. Yeah, so smashed it with an 1176, even more compression. Echo Boy, eighth on the left, dotted eighth on the right, one of my favorite verbs to use. We've got just a little bit of blend there. And then we've got CLA effects, the hall, like we talked about, except here I've got it on the track, so I'm using the direct mode waves that's got built in here. So if you use that as a send, turn this off. Use it on a track, use it in direct mode. Or break the rules and do whatever you want, but that's just what I did here. All right, so there's our verb, a little bit of gyno hall. Let's turn all of this off. I should say it starts with the blend, and I remember my first blend of these gang vocals, I did not have much of these top two tracks, the 55 VG1 LCR. These are the ones that came to us kind of compressed already. I had those down, and I had these down here up. The ones, let's break this down. So these first three here are the group. And then these sounded like maybe Ash. So you get the clarity from that, but then you get the group from here. So, it's a nice blend. Good way to do gang vocals. So just like that, getting the blend right to your taste, to whatever fits a song for you, that was the first thing to do. But then we've got the de-essing. Not going to hear much there, but then the processing. So let's hear that. Just a hyper, larger-than-life sound. Love what that did to him. Then we've got these background vocals, which are the singy background vocals. And kind of like the guitars, I could have gone in and each individual one maybe done more to it, maybe featured it more. I call it lazy. I don't know. It felt like overkill. They all just kind of worked. They were recorded well. They blended well. Again, we had the de-esser across all the channels. For the low center and low L here, I had the de-esser from Nectar. I think that was already on there before I added the Pro DS. So it was just 2 stages of de-essing for that one. This guy features the singing. So that was actually, I think, what triggered me to add de-essers across all of these tracks. So those were there, just a double dip, no big deal. Making sure the S's stay in control. Then the bus, we've got compression. No EQ, just compression from the SSL, a little bit of saturation. EQ taking out the low mids. They were way too forward, I felt like, in the original mix, the one that was released to iTunes and YouTube. They were way more chill. They still popped. They still had a great sound to them, but they did not have as much mid-range, and so I like that, and I pulled them back and helped them kind of find their place in the mix by just pulling down 1.5K. Quite a bit there, 5, 6, 7 dB. And then the hall that we talked about direct on the track, same thing from above. So no processing. Let's come out here. Bam.
I'm singing my way out of this one.
And then with it.
I'm singing my way out of this one.
And you hear those S's just clamping down on them. Don't even let them in. And those were the backgrounds. So, man, those are the vocals. I did not do anything to the vocal bus down here. We'll go ahead and look at the buses. We talked about the drums, the glue. Talked about that quite a bit. I should probably add this to the bonus primer series because it'll probably be something I at least do a little bit of in each mix. I like the parallel processing, the verb, the depth that it gives. Really cool little thing here from Jonathan Roy over at mixnotes.tv. And you can see we got a delay, 30 milliseconds on the left, 40 on the right. Goes to deverb. You can see the room there. We just got a large room. We'll dial in that based on the song. I'll hit the snare drum, just kind of hit the snare, let it decay, find a sweet spot for the room to decay and extend to the next snare hit. So we'll time that to the track a little bit. Then I've got a Pro Q removing the bottom, and then an 1176. Let me play the track without this. Let's come in here. Maybe the verse 2 is a good place. It's fairly open.
So come here and look me in the eye. I'll take this down, bring myself back to life.
So it cleans up a little bit when I mute this. It's subtle, but it cleans up and becomes a little more dry, a little more direct. And then with it in, just adds just that little bit of depth, a little bit of width. It just kind of helps enhance the track a bit, I think.
So come here and look me in the eye. I'll take this down, bring myself back to life. Well, I thought I could breathe, get my mistakes. I'm turning like a leaf in the rain.
I dig it. So just a little bit on this one. Nothing too featured, nothing too crazy. That's it. The other buses didn't really get to all music. I did mess with all music a little bit. We've got the FG Gray for some compression.
So come here and look me in the eye.
1 dB of reduction. Nothing really too much there. And then I did go nuts with the music. I felt like the client's mix, the guitars were wider. I felt like things were just wider, and I wanted mine to be wide. So I don't recall using 63% of widening on my all music bus ever, maybe in a long time, early trial and error days, but I just kind of pushed it up, closed my eyes until it felt good, and I left it there. The cool thing about doing the widening here is it doesn't affect the vocals, it doesn't affect the drums, the low end. It is only affecting the music tracks, the guitars, the keys, the pads, anything that goes through the all music bus. It's leaving the drums in the center of the stereo image alone, and it's just affecting the stuff that's already hard left and right for the most part. And that was it. Then we go down to Mix A, and I chose to go with the Vertigo VSC2. I'm almost afraid to hit play and check this out. I have a feeling this is going to be more than 4 dB of reduction, but I messed with it a little bit. I dug what it was doing, and I rocked it. Let's give it a go.
So come here and look me in the eye. I'll take this down, bring myself back to life. Well, I thought I could break.
I don't even care. I like it. I like the compression going on there. Typically, I'll be -2, -3 tops, but I just wanted rock and roll, and I really dug the rock and roll vibe of the client's original mix. Ash's, I forget the guy who mixed it, but love that mix, and it just felt like smashed to death for the mastering, but the compression, the rock bus compression was cool, and I dug the Vertigo on it. I just kind of used my ears and pushed things up. Obviously, there's more punch, there's more transient with this off, but I wanted that glue. I wanted to grab it, and I wanted to get a hold of it. And I dug what that was doing. Studer, let's bypass that and hear the difference.
So come here and look me in the eye.
You're gonna hear a low end difference.
Take this down, bring myself back to life.
Oh yeah.
Well, I thought I could breathe, forget my mistakes.
No.
I'm trembling like a leaf in the
pretty straightforward there. Just being careful not to hit it too hard because it can get a bit nasty on the overall mix. So that going into the curve bender, we looked at that before, a little bit of bottom, a little bit of top, and that was it. Did not do any parallel compression on the overall mix. I didn't do any clipping. Don't know that I will actually ever again. Really something that opened my eyes. Let's just talk about it in the next video. I want to look at the limiting and that stuff in the next video. We'll do that. I'll see you guys there.